The academic year is wrapping up all across America. There are states and territories that reopened schools and colleges at all levels and faced minimal disruptions because of COVID-19 cases. Many others reopened in some kind of hybrid learning. The end means big life changes. It is graduation time, a special podcast to those outgoing high school seniors and college graduates. They are listening. Time for That's It, That's All.
You are listening to That's It, That's All with Eulogio Gumataotao.
You did not stumble on this podcast. You are here for a reason. This is That's It, That's All. I'm Eulogio Gumataotao, your host of the podcast. That's It, That's All is brought to you by Get LLC, a consulting and specialty construction materials and supplies firm based in Micronesia. Do you need support with completing your business plan? What about energy-efficient upgrades that would give you the most bang for your commercial business buck? Let Get LLC help answer the important questions to support your business. You can find out more on their website at get-guam.com. Greeting to those listeners checking out the podcast in Lansing, Michigan. Also, greetings to those of you listening in Mamaroneck, New York. The listenership continues to grow, including those now listening in Tempe, Arizona. Can't forget the listeners across my island home, especially those up the road in Manilao and where I spent my childhood in San Leandro, California. Hafa to you all near and far. A simple format is what That's It, That's All is all about. Let the podcast keep you company as you go from one end of Paradise, Guam to the other. Download the podcast ahead of your next road trip, ahead of that work on your desktop or laptop computer, and right before you begin that next workout at the gym or parks. Thank you to our good friends at redcircle.com and pushing out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Amazon Music. Don't forget that you can find That's It, That's All on the iHeartRadio app and Pandora as well. Like, subscribe, or follow the podcast right now on your favorite podcast app. Click, click, click those important buttons right now. As a parent of a high school senior and an adjunct instructor at the University of Guam, as of the recording of this podcast, there is plenty of buzz with this time of year. Despite all the crazy relative to the ongoing public health emergency, education systems nationwide are doing their part to bring some normalcy to what is the most important part of the academic year. In the heart of the pandemic last year, these ceremonies were largely muted or just canceled altogether out of an abundance of caution. In 2020, American high schools and colleges did many of these commencement exercises virtually. Some went as far as doing the drive-up graduation ceremony as a way to engage when COVID numbers seemed to be on a downward trajectory, only to spike over the summer in the United States. But 2021 has presented itself a bit differently. With robust coronavirus testing capacity and vaccination efforts in full swing, educators all over America and the world doing their part to honor the work of these students. State and local education departments and their college, university, and private school counterparts have spent a better part of a year to provide ideas for school staff to consider as they plan for graduation ceremonies going on as this podcast is released. The ideas included providing a professional photographer to take photos so families don't move around to take their own recorded music and pre-recorded canned speeches to be streamed to audiences who can't be there in person per public health guidance, and providing increased distancing and precautions for people with underlying health conditions. Plans made even to allow in-person events in pods and shorten the graduation event to reduce any infection spread. Masks are a significant part of these graduation ceremonies, regardless of whether they are held indoor or outdoor. There has been so much thought put in. Even in these extraordinary times, the rite of passage still is front and center in communities nationwide. Planning is underway for high schools within the Los Angeles Unified School District to host their own safe, socially distanced outdoor graduation ceremonies. and offer summer school this year for all students. NBC4 in LA is reporting that LAUSD Superintendent Austin Butner will deploy mobile coronavirus vaccination teams over a period of about 2 weeks to about 250 school sites to get as many shots into students' arms as possible to complement the effort. The Honolulu Star-Advertiser is reporting that Hawaii's public high schools will be holding graduations in various locations for the class of 2021 to accommodate pandemic precautions, with several big schools choosing Aloha Stadium. Many schools in the Aloha State are offering drive-through diploma pickups on their campuses or having their graduates walk across the stage distance from their peers. Campbell High School in Eva Beach, the state's largest public school there, will hold a drive-through diploma pickup on its campus for the 650 seniors scheduled to graduate. The Daily Progress reported late last month that Louisa County High School was one of the first in the state of Virginia to figure out how to graduate the class of 2020 after the pandemic closed schools last year. The school's class of 2021 used their football stadium and staggered arrival times to pull off yet another successful graduation. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam in March announced draft guidance for in-person graduation ceremonies, limiting attendance at outdoor events to 5,000 people or 30% of the venue's capacity, whichever is less. Other schools in the state are offering walk-through or drive-through graduation events to give students at least a photo opportunity. For colleges, this has been about the same. The largest university system in America, the California State University, has made sure that each of their campuses statewide are following state and county guidelines to ensure any event maintains the safety of those in attendance and providing live streaming. Now, in-person, commencement, and virtual ceremonies have been completed as of the recording of the podcast. My alma mater at Cal State Bakersfield will soon hold in-person commencement exercises for graduates of CSUB. Congratulations to all the runners. However it happens, the commotion and preparation is still a normal activity, even in these extraordinary times. Many of the class of 2021 will look back at the year that was and remember all the good and bad. High school and college students will have so much to look forward to. The celebration of the work, passion, and learning has only just begun for the future of our American society.
This podcast is sponsored by Get LLC, a consulting and specialty construction materials and supplies firm. Since 2012, they have provided valuable services to their customers across Micronesia and North America. Check them out on the World Wide Web at get-guam.com. They have a presence on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram too. Get LLC. Find out today how they can best serve your business's specific needs.
The Virgin Islands Consortium reported this week that high school seniors in the St. Thomas district of the U.S. Virgin Islands have filed a complaint with the USVI Department of Education to have in-person graduations in line with Centers for Disease Control guidance. The seniors of the territory's high schools are trying to settle the matter before the end of this school year, which is fast approaching. USVI Governor Albert Bryan has a different position against in-person seated events that remain off limits there, saying, quote, "The Board of Education has no say in what the health protocols of the Virgin Islands are, and I think people forget we're under a state of emergency still. So the Board of Education ruling is a matter of course, but it has no effect on what's going to happen. We've already made our decision, and that's how the graduations will be carried out." Close quote. In the CNMI, Marianas High School's request for a face-to-face graduation later this month for its seniors has been denied. According to the Saipan Tribune, while the initial plans for the event were approved After close assessment and consultation with the public school system leadership and the governor's COVID-19 task force, the school said it would prove difficult to ensure that the event's potential 300 graduates will all comply with COVID-19 safety protocols. MHS Vice Principal Romolo Orsini said the shift from a face-to-face to a drive-through graduation should, quote, not shadow the achievements and success MHS has had this past school year, close quote. These two stories are such a sharp contrast to what is being seen in my backyard. Yes, the Guam public school system is proceeding with drive-through graduations for their high school seniors. In fact, there wasn't much backlash. The system did go to a handful of the schools in recent months to get the kids there vaccinated. As of this podcast, just over 72,000 residents of Guam have received their first shots, which is just shy of 45% of the entire population. The private schools, on the other hand, were able to proceed with in-person graduations. Their respective plans were submitted to the Guam Department of Public Health well in advance of the graduation seasons. I believe many were submitted when the government began vaccination efforts at the beginning of the calendar year. Most of the events went off without a hitch. The graduation of my high school senior from Notre Dame High School was very unique. The 52nd edition of this program was held indoors. Guests were limited to 3 per graduate. All 72 seniors were masked up. My understanding is that most of them were fully vaccinated. They didn't get the pomp and circumstance that is part of the tradition of the commencement that goes back years and years and years. Fully seated, fully engaged. Pretty straightforward. Guests in advance were registered to meet any contact tracing needs. The school provided a Facebook Live feed for families near and far that could be a part of the scaled-down event. Also, the school provided the work of a single still photographer that allowed for at least the photo of the graduate to be captured as part of the graduation ceremony. Families took photos after the graduation in a controlled effort to be sure that the important image with mom, dad, guardian, whomever was done too. Heck, my girl even gave an air hug to her principal when receiving her diploma, all very different from ceremonies of years past. It was all very nice and frankly beats the heck out of the drive-through type of event. Thankfully, the school community is small enough for such an event. Everyone, including the seniors, appreciated that our school was able to pull this off. I will admit, there was plenty of explaining to our senior about the significance of such an event, but the event had all the trappings of the traditional high school graduation. It marked the end of such an important part of their formidable years in school. I and many parents across the island and country were explaining the unique aspect of this school year. Kitchen tables in America were filled with questions, concerns, visions for tomorrow. As a parent, it was tough to watch a school year dominated by online learning and limited in-class time. This hybrid type of learning could have been dropped for a full return once vaccines made their way to our U.S. territory. I still remain puzzled why they did not return and punted the return back to in-class education until the fall of 2021. Cautious outlooks are okay, but the science is telling such a different story. Communities are looking for normalcy, and high school graduations could have been that nudge to bring down anxieties related to the pandemic. With each passing day, there is hope that schools, to include our high school activities, can return to normal, and with it, a better sense of where our island and nation is headed in the ongoing public health emergency.
This podcast is sponsored by Get LLC, a consulting and specialty construction materials and supplies firm. Since 2012, they have provided valuable services to their customers across Micronesia and North America. Check them out on the World Wide Web at get-guam.com. They have a presence on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram too. Get LLC. Find out today how they can best serve your business's specific needs.
Late last week, the Guam Community College held their graduation ceremonies for 2021 with a drive-through event that honored those who completed their studies. After this podcast, the University of Guam will be using the Paseo Stadium in the heart of Guam's capital city for their spring 2021 commencement exercises. Outdoors. Normally, the UOG Fieldhouse is the venue, but in recent months, the facility has been ground zero for Guam's vaccination efforts. I think this is the best idea that could be used for higher ed in the U.S. territory, a world-class operation in the heart of higher learning in Micronesia. The spring 2021 semester has wrapped up, and graduates from UOG are gearing up for yet another memorable end to the academic year. COVID provisions remain. Classes making a hard move towards face-to-face in the fall. The efforts to keep the University of Guam's student informed has been a tremendous feat over the past year. Outages still remain in parts of the UOG network following security hits. The challenge is met. Green zones to support learning needs reaching across the Manila campus is helping meet student learning outcomes one class at a time. Professional training support, too, is happening. There was a desire to learn throughout. Though challenged by what life has been delivering nowadays, students at UOG were making a big effort to meet their class and financial obligation. But the UOG students and all college students across the country just ground it out. I commend every student for making it to class. Reading the texts or papers consumed your every moment. Well, it better. The work done in preparation of that next opportunity has to be made. Your work was good. Your test scores represent only a small part of your grade. The projects can and have made or broke grades. Coming to class also showed that you cared about the coursework and getting on to the next class, a continuous process both in Guam and across the United States. Much of which is this podcast, the learning process. We can celebrate the student, but we can celebrate also all teachers. At every level, there is a person that is making sure that a quality education is being delivered, that sharing of knowledge. For the balance of the next few weeks, this group is trying to wind down and prepare for another session. Education really is year-round, whether it is Guam or any other place on the planet. If we think for 1 second that the process stops, we better take a serious look at the impacts that a lack of support for education will spell, pretty much peril, as our brightest are taking on the world on many different fronts. The path is long, and for you newly minted graduates, some advice from this high school and college graduate as well. This is such an important part of your life. Bring it all in. Take it. Apply liberally. Many of you are preparing for new jobs. Some are still on the hunt, but determined. Some deciding if the NCLEX or GRE or LSAT is the path. Teaming on graduate projects are hitting on all cylinders. We really do have something special at the University of Guam and are offering up to the rest of the world, and something very similar it's happening all across the country in colleges and universities from coast to coast. Also, many thanks to public school teachers. Now, the teachers and staff of the many private schools and nurseries, again, we promote them early. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The work that you all do is so important for the good of our Guam society and our growing Micronesia. The stories are special, from the Marshall Islands to Palau. I want to say that I am in great company with those teachers of our young people. I cannot forget to mention the first teachers of our young people, the parents. There has been plenty of sleep loss, ironing of uniforms, helping with projects, hugging during the good times and the bad. These life lessons and changes are what carry us all beyond the classroom. I hope and pray for much success for the class of 2021. Do not be defined by what others want of your future. Go and live your future. That's it. That's all. If you enjoyed this podcast, download, press subscribe, or follow us right now. More great content is on the way. Talk to you soon.
The That's It, That's All podcast is produced by Sean Gumataotao. Executive producer is Trisha Gumataotao. Hit the subscribe or follow button and leave a review. Thanks for listening.